This woman dedicated 20 years of her life to her family, but her husband despised her lack of education and demanded a divorce. During her school days, Yoona was an outstanding dancer. She had the opportunity to perform on a bigger stage, but she unexpectedly became pregnant. With no other options, she had to drop out of school and follow her husband to Germany. Now, her husband despises her lack of education and plans to divorce her once their son is admitted to university. After 20 years as a housewife, Yoona has nothing to her name. Even the phone she uses is one her husband discarded. After signing the divorce agreement, Yoona finds her best friend to complain. She says that since her husband despises her for being uneducated, she will go to college. Hyami thinks Yoona is crazy. Yoona dismisses her, saying that only married people can understand her. A career-minded woman like Hyami would never understand her. That night, Yoona stands by the window early, waiting for her husband and son to come home. As soon as she saw them arrive at the building, she rushed to the door to greet them. However, her son's eyes were filled with disgust toward Yoona. Ji-Woo, on the other hand, complained that his wife was only concerned with making him eat. Upon returning to the room, Ji-Woo forced himself to suppress his nausea and pushed Yoona's bed to the other side. He then removed the wedding ring from his finger with a sense of relief. Yoona instinctively covered her hand, which still wore the wedding ring. Her husband said, "We're already divorced. Take off the wedding ring." Yoona reluctantly took off the wedding ring. From then on, Yoona spent her days doing housework and going out to attend classes to study as much as possible. While preparing breakfast, she was secretly memorizing vocabulary words. She even sat on the toilet at midnight every day to study. Blood was flowing from her nose, but she kept watching the teacher's lecture video. On the day of the college entrance exam, Yoona just sent her son out the door and turned around to secretly get into her best friend's car. After her hard work and effort, she finally achieved excellent results on the college entrance exam. The major she applied for was also her son's favorite, philosophy. Yoona checked the admission information with high hopes, but her name wasn't there. Seeing that her marriage was falling apart, she couldn't help but burst into tears. When she returned home, Yoona wiped the tears from her face and happily congratulated her son on getting into college. Her son vented his emotions at Yoona for failing to get into a prestigious university, then returned to his room. Ji-Woo pretended to comfort his wife, telling her not to worry about their son failing the exam. Finally, he began to formally urge her to hurry up and file for divorce. Yoona was devastated. But then she suddenly received a call from the same university her son had been accepted to. She happily thanked the person on the phone and bowed. That night, she cooked a big meal and announced that she was going to college. When Mark heard this, he thought his mother had gone crazy. He felt that it would be embarrassing for his mother to go to college with him. Yoona sat anxiously on the sofa, hoping that her husband would say that they didn't have to get a divorce. But her husband just looked at her with a mocking expression. Even if Yoona went to college, they would still have nothing in common. Ji-Woo even knelt on the floor and begged Yoona to let him off. In the morning, Yoona went to the hospital alone for a checkup. Thinking of her husband's desire to divorce her, she wished she had a terminal illness. Yoona was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and only had 6 months to live. On the verge of divorce, Yoona had a mental breakdown and ran away. She ended up crying loudly at a bus stop. She didn't even notice that her cell phone had been stolen. She sat there until late at night before returning home. She wanted to show some concern for her son, but he impatiently shooed her away. When her husband saw her come in, he quickly closed his computer. Yoona asked her husband what he would do if she died. Ji-Woo coldly replied that everyone dies eventually. Yoona didn't sleep all night, feeling abandoned by the whole world. The next day, she received a call from the university. They told her to pay her tuition fees immediately or they would not accept her. Yoona vented all the resentment in her heart. She stormed into the school but saw the students rehearsing a stage play. She thought of herself in high school, practicing dance desperately for a performance. Yoona didn't want to have any regrets with only 6 months left, so she changed her mind and decided to continue her studies. She hurried home and found the tuition her grandmother had prepared for her in her pillow. After paying the tuition, Yoona officially became a college student. In order to have something in common to talk about with her husband, who has a PhD in psychology, Yoona specifically chose psychology courses. She also deliberately chose courses on marriage and relationships. Just when Yoona thought she was about to start a wonderful college life, she was humiliated by her teacher on her first day of class. Miho had a crush on Yoona in high school. He asked Yoona why she was causing a scene in the classroom. Yoona could only say awkwardly that she was a student. After class, Yoona angrily called Miho and asked him why he humiliated her in front of everyone. Miho said that if she didn't like him, she could apply to switch classes. Although they were classmates before, now that they were in college, They had to call each other teacher. Yuna felt wronged and confided in her best friend. Hayami said that she hadn't seen Miho in a long time. Then she directly gave Yuna a cell phone. In the evening, when her husband saw Yuna looking for something in the study, he immediately asked her what she was doing with a panicked look on his face. Junwoo sat down on his usual office chair with a guilty conscience. Yuna saw that her husband didn't want her to stay there, so she prepared to leave. However, her husband suddenly called her back to talk about divorce. Yuna asked her husband to give her 3 more months. After hearing this, her husband's eyes became panicked. Yuna said that the divorce agreement did not specify an exact date. Her husband was so scared that he immediately checked the agreement and found that there was no specific date written on it. In the end, they had no choice but to agree. Yuna looked at her husband, who was eager to get a divorce, and thought of her own terminal illness and the fact that she didn't have much time left, and couldn't help but cry. She was afraid that someone would hear her crying, so she turned on the faucet. The next day, Yuna was dozing off on the subway. When she arrived at school, she couldn't find her cell phone, so she had no choice but to go to class first. The girl she had just met on the subway suddenly handed her a cell phone. Yuna realized that she had left her cell phone on the subway. In class, the teacher asked the students to read a famous book and write down their impressions. After class, Yuna rushed to the library to quickly find the book she wanted to read, but someone else got there first. Yuna felt wronged. She had come first, so why did she have to lend it to her? The librarian said that the other student had reserved it in advance. Yuna could only find the teaching assistant, but before she could ask a few questions, the teaching assistant impatiently told her to ask her classmates. Yuna had no choice but to ask everyone she saw, but when the students saw her, they thought she was the teacher and ran away. In marriage and relationship class, the teacher asked the students to form couples. Yuna felt sorry when she saw that the person she drew was being laughed at by everyone. After class, she hurriedly apologized to that student, but the student suggested she drop the class. Everyone's ridicule and humiliation made Yuna consider dropping out. At that moment, she heard lively voices nearby. It was a club recruiting new members. Yuna had wanted to quietly go about her business, but she was pulled onto the stage to dance. This made her even more determined to finish college. To avoid being discovered by her son, Yuna hid in a grassy area every day to eat. She was eating when Miho suddenly appeared and started causing trouble. Yuna realized there was a strange smell and got up to leave, but then she saw her husband, who was supposed to be working at another university. Yuna panicked, curled up in her chair, covered her face with her hat, and prayed that her husband wouldn't see her. But Miho took off her hat and kept asking her what she was doing. When she saw her husband walk away, Yuna relaxed. Miho asked her why she was hiding from her husband. Yuna heard this question and got up and left. Only when no one was behind her did she dare to call her husband's former workplace. The person who answered said that her husband was now working at this university. Yuna was full of doubts as to why her husband didn't tell her that he had changed jobs. She thought about it carefully and decided to change her psychology class to avoid meeting her husband, who taught psychology. So she asked for help on the campus network to change classes. Some malicious students knew that Junwoo's class was very popular, so they deliberately took Yuna's class away from her. At this moment, Yuna was still foolishly calling to ask why the class she wanted to switch to was not available. A student standing nearby couldn't help but remind her that she had been tricked. In the evening, Yuna was still standing at the door waiting for her husband to come home. Junwoo, who had a guilty conscience, was startled. Yuna asked him why he didn't tell her that he had changed jobs. Junwoo arrogantly said that they were already divorced. Yuna felt that the person in front of her was shameless. The next day, she hid in the quietest place in the university and looked at her grandmother's photo, unable to stop the tears from falling. Not only was she ostracized in the university, but she was also deceived. Her former best friend Miho had been bullying her. Her husband was even more heartless, constantly pressuring her to divorce him. She didn't have much time left. When Yuna looked up, she saw the despicable Miho again. Miho immediately offered to arrange the courses that hadn't been switched for her. Yuna quickly wiped away her tears and asked if it was true. However, Miho asked her to answer a question first. He accused Yuna of hiding the fact that she was attending university from her husband. The resentment Yuna had been holding in finally erupted. Miho said he would ask Junwoo for an explanation. This immediately made the angry Yuna panic. Yuna apologized to Miho, hoping that he would not give her a hard time in the future. She promised that she would never appear in front of Miho again. At this point, Miho did not agree to let Yuna drop the class and quickly found an excuse. Yuna felt a little confused by his inconsistent attitude. Seeing that he had contacted the psychology professor to let her take the psychology class, She said nothing more. Yuna suddenly became curious and asked Miho how he recognized her husband that day. She had never told Miho who her husband was or what he looked like. It turned out that Miho had asked her best friend why she had dropped out of school after she did. And that was how he found out her husband's name. Her husband was the psychologist Miho was currently working with on a project. But Miho only said that a student had told him that a psychology teacher was transferring there. And your husband happens to be a psychology major. So that's how I knew your husband was him. Miho returned to the office. But his assistant pointed to the class roster and found it odd. Yuna had already dropped the class. Yet her name still appeared on the list. Had Yuna reapplied after dropping the class? Miho said softly, I regret it. I don't want her to drop the class. The assistant suddenly sat up straight and asked if he had dated Yuna before. Miho didn't hide it and admitted it directly. At this moment, Yuna was being forced by her husband to sign an agreement. Ji-Woo was afraid that Yuna would change her mind after the divorce. So he wanted her to write down the agreement. Yuna directly pressed her fingerprint on the agreement, hoping that her husband would not regret it in the future. On the weekend, Yuna saw that her son was still studying at 11 o'clock every night, even on his day off. She suggested that her son take a day off to rest at home, while she went out to run some errands so as not to disturb him. Unexpectedly, Ji-Woo suddenly came out and called his son. At the dinner table, Mark saw that his father had something to say and spoke up. Seeing this, Ji-Woo took some pocket money and his business card out of his wallet and handed them to his son. When he saw that his son had found the business card, he hurriedly explained. Yuna didn't have much time left and came to the nursing home to say goodbye to the grandmothers there. She was afraid that the grandmothers would worry about her, so she made up an excuse. Her husband was going abroad to be a professor and would not be coming here anymore. While helping the grandmothers hang their clothes, Yuna suddenly heard Miho's voice on the radio. The radio was talking about death. Yuna thought of her husband saying the same thing and couldn't help but refute it. People who have not had a terminal illness are not qualified to say such things. Thinking that she only had 6 months left to live, Yuna listened intently to the radio. She thought about how to live the rest of her life well. After hearing the content, Yuna was deeply inspired and wrote down her short and tragic life. She lost her parents at a young age. Her mother remarried, and she lived with her grandmother. She loved to dance and was accepted into an art school. The first time she performed a dance in front of a group of people was also the last time. Then she met her current husband. As a result, she got pregnant before marriage and dropped out of school to follow her husband to Germany. She gave birth to her only son in a foreign country. Then she raised her son and finally returned to South Korea. Now she has a terminal illness and only 6 months to live. Her whole life can be summed up in a few words. Yuna realizes that her life is a failure. She throws away the autobiography she has written and stands on a busy street corner, suddenly filled with regret. She regrets that she wished for a terminal illness because her husband wanted a divorce. She regrets that she has lived so many years without doing anything. She immediately calls her best friend to complain that she has been treated so unfairly. Yuna is so upset that she not only goes on a shopping spree, but also makes a study plan. When she returns home, she is afraid that her husband will find out about her impulsive spending and stop giving her any more living expenses. So she puts her clothes in the kitchen cupboard. Unexpectedly, there are so many clothes that they don't all fit in the cupboard. Then Yuna puts a leather jacket in the refrigerator. After doing all this, Yuna's first wish was to reconcile with her son. She stroked the door in front of her as if she were stroking her son. Her second wish was to fulfill her dream of dancing. At that moment, the members of the dance club were being criticized by their leader. On the day of recruitment, another club had lured away more than 70 people with their dance performance. Yuna arrived at the dance club full of enthusiasm. She didn't expect the leader to be her partner from the marriage and relationship class. After exchanging information, Yuna remembered that her purpose was to join the dance club. Taejun looked at Yuna in disbelief. Yuna said sincerely that she knew this was the only dance club in the school. Taejun looked at Yuna, who was already 38 years old, and wanted her to give up. Yuna refused to accept the leader's harsh rejection and said she would come back another day. Taejun was speechless at the thought of a 38-year-old woman wanting to dance. The two ended up parting ways in an unpleasant manner. Unbeknownst to them, they would cross paths again in a performance class. Due to 3 people being late, the teacher automatically grouped them together. The two, who had just come from the dance club, were forced to become group members. After class, the 3 planned to discuss their group assignment. Taejun immediately stated he wanted to drop the class. Yuna could only exchange contact information with her classmates and make other plans. She then hurried to the freshman welcome party. The party had already started. When everyone saw an older woman walking over, the atmosphere became awkward. Everyone put down their glasses. Yuna greeted her classmates respectfully. The senior treated Yuna just like the other students and warmly invited her to sit down. A new student saw that everyone was feeling awkward and suggested playing a game to liven up the atmosphere. Just as everyone was having fun, a group announcement made everyone's faces change instantly. They had been leaked the information about this gathering. The experienced senior was skillfully arranging a strategy, but he didn't expect the uninvited guest to have already arrived. The professor skillfully sat between two girls, with one arm around one girl's shoulder and the other tightly gripping the girl next to her. The professor couldn't resist touching the pretty girls as soon as he saw them. At that moment, he had no idea that everything was being filmed. The students all left with their female classmates. The professor said he wanted to talk to this female student about her future work. Hearing the professor's veiled threat, no one dared to speak. At this point, Yuna couldn't stand it anymore and exposed the professor's ugly true colors. The professor immediately panicked but stubbornly claimed he was just concerned about the students. The boys hurriedly calmed down the angry professor and led him away. After Yuna spoke, she felt a bit anxious but was met with applause from everyone. This scene was witnessed by Miho. It turned out that teacher Jean had invited Miho over to discuss a collaboration project with Yuna's husband. Miho didn't want to work with his romantic rival, so he refused teacher Jean outright. Unexpectedly, teacher Jean was enraged and threatened Miho with the principal's daughter and financial aid. Miho was merciless and said that the principal's daughter would not interfere in school matters. Teacher Jean was so angry that he picked up his bag and left, forgetting that he had dropped a pen. It was this pen that allowed Miho to discover the special relationship between teacher Jean and Yuna's husband. The next day in the study room, the students saw Yuna come in and saved a seat for her. A male student immediately said, "The professor's behavior yesterday was ridiculous." Yuna couldn't help but ask, why did everyone just stand by and do nothing when the professor acted like that before? Upon hearing this, the students' expressions changed instantly. At that moment, a male student told Yuna to watch her words. The professor, in an attempt to save face, pressured a student. The senior knew the professor wanted Yuna to apologize. When he arrived at the study room and saw everyone arguing, he immediately lost his temper. He even took the opportunity to tell Yuna to apologize to the professor. Yuna refused to apologize because the professor was at fault. The classmates who had just been flattering her were now silent, not standing up for her. At lunchtime, Yuna went to the cafeteria to eat but found that the classmates who had praised her earlier were now complaining that she was meddling in others' affairs. Yuna lowered her head and found a corner to eat. The club president happened to overhear the students whispering among themselves. At this point, Yuna was so angry that she couldn't eat and hurriedly left the cafeteria. She couldn't understand her classmates' behavior and immediately ran to find Miho. Yuna thought he would blame her classmates for their inconsistent behavior, just like she did. However, Miho blamed her for having no right to blame her classmates. Yuna asked him in a hurt tone what she should do now. Miho sarcastically said, "Don't you have a husband with a PhD in psychology?" Yuna angrily scolded Miho for being a bad man. As she left, she didn't notice that the notebook she was carrying had fallen out. Miho picked it up and discovered it was Yuna's suicide note. Just as Yuna stepped out of Miho's studio, she received a call from the hospital. Yuna arrived at the hospital, where the doctor told her she had been misdiagnosed and did not have a terminal illness. As soon as she mentioned the hospital, Yuna couldn't wait to tell her best friend the news. She then suggested that her best friend also make a wish list. As she was about to take out her notebook, she couldn't find it in her bag. At this moment, Miho already knew that Yuna had a terminal illness. He had been angry, but now he was stunned. Distraught, he cancelled all of his plans for the day. Miho noticed that none of Yuna's wishes mentioned her husband. At that moment, Yuna was still worried about losing her notebook, which contained many study notes. Hayami wondered why Yuna was going back to school if she was already better. She then asked Yuna how she planned to handle the divorce. Having already faced death once, Yuna no longer broke down crying over the divorce like she used to. At the entrance of the neighborhood, Yuna encountered her son. She ran toward him like a young girl and happily threw herself into his arms. Mark was startled by his mother's behavior. He then asked her if she had been drinking. Junwoo came home from work and also encountered the mother and son. He was about to scold his wife for drinking, but she ignored him and left. The next day, Miho secretly followed Yuna. He wanted to find the perfect opportunity to return the notebook to her. At that moment, a student asked Yuna if she had apologized to the professor. Yuna said she would never apologize to the professor. In the days that followed, she began to be ostracized by her classmates. When she saw her classmates on the street and tried to greet them, They ignored her as if she weren't there. Then Yoona went to the dance club to have dinner with the club leader to complete the couple task for her marriage and emotions class. Taejun had just finished eating and told Yoona to call him in advance next time they wanted to eat together. Miho was standing outside the door, thinking about how to make Yoona find the notebook. Yoona suddenly came out, scaring him so much that he quickly hid in the bathroom. When he saw Yoona buy a bento box, he immediately had an idea. He went to the place where Yoona usually ate and placed the notebook on the chair in a reasonable manner. But he was afraid that someone else would pick it up, so he put it in the bushes where Yoona often passed by. Miho had just walked a few steps when he saw Yoona's husband walking towards him. At that moment, Yoona was also coming from the other direction. In order to protect Yoona's secret that she was secretly attending university, Miho rushed towards Yoona, grabbed her, and covered her face with his clothes. When Yoona saw Miho, who usually bullied her, she wanted to call him crazy, but when she heard the word husband, she was so scared that she hid in Miho's arms. Ji-Woo, who was passing by, saw the two of them and couldn't help but say, "Are young people like this nowadays?" When the two saw that Ji-Woo had walked away, they relaxed. The students who were passing by also thought it was a public display of affection and took out their cell phones to take pictures. After all, Miho was a well-known director who had acted in plays and appeared on variety shows. For the sake of their reputations, Miho pulled Yoona and ran straight to where they had hidden the notebook. Yoona was disgusted by the strange smell on Miho. Miho was not angry, but instead asked her if she was feeling okay. Yoona asked him why he cared so much about her. Just as she was about to leave, she found her notebook. Seeing Yoona so happy, Miho was happy for her, but he still teased her for being so careless. Then he put Yoona's school bag on his back. Miho was afraid that Yoona's body couldn't carry so many books, so he cleared out his locker for her. Yoona, who was usually bullied, was overwhelmed by Miho's kindness. Miho thought his disguise was perfect, but his assistant saw everything. The assistant was disappointed and accused him of refusing the school's assistance for Yoona. Miho told the assistant that Yoona had a terminal illness. After hearing this, the assistant was relieved. She thought that her 5 years of hard work had been wasted. Miho thought about how Yoona had studied hard for her husband to get into college. He felt that Yoona must want her husband to have a successful career. Miho called Ji-Woo and invited him to his studio to discuss a collaboration. Ji-Woo was overjoyed because Miho was a very famous director. He immediately rushed to Miho's office. The two sat down to discuss the project and took out the pens and materials they had prepared. Miho tentatively asked Ji-Woo how he felt about the death of a spouse. Ji-Woo directly picked up the pen Miho had prepared and began his speech. As he spoke, he put the pen in his pocket. Seeing this, Miho reached out to stop him. Ji-Woo casually said that it was a gift from someone else. Miho fell into deep thought. This was clearly the pen that Teacher Jean had dropped at the restaurant that day. Could they be in a relationship? No wonder Teacher Jean had specifically asked Ji-Woo to discuss the project. With this in mind, Miho dismissed Ji-Woo on the grounds that their ideas were incompatible. Watching Ji-Woo leave, he began to think about how to deal with these two. The next day, Miho sent messages to both of them, asking them to come to his office. Ji-Woo came to the office cursing and was surprised. He didn't expect Teacher Jean to be there too. Both of them felt a little strange and had a heated discussion about Miho's intentions. At that moment, Miho suddenly walked in. Teacher Jean immediately reacted and quickly let go of Junwoo's hand. She hurriedly explained to Miho that there was something dirty on Ji-Woo. Miho smiled contemptuously and formally announced the reason why he had asked them to come. At that moment, Taejun noticed that Yoona was sitting alone in the classroom. Seeing this, he was furious. Yoona had stood up for her classmates, yet she was being isolated by them. As soon as Taejun entered the classroom, he heard the students talking badly about Yoona. He suppressed his anger and stood at the front of the classroom, asking the students if they wanted Yoona to drop out. Yoona, who was standing outside the classroom, heard everything. The female students then began to complain about Yoona. Yoona recalled what Miho had said. Now she could understand her classmates' thoughts, so she searched online for a solution to the problem. After seeing the content online, Yoona asked herself if she really wanted to apologize. Just then, her classmate Jimin called and asked her to meet him at the bar where he worked. Since Jimin had to work, Yoona was bored. Seeing that the young people were drinking a certain beverage, she ordered one as well. Then Jimin handed her a USB flash drive. Yoona looked confused. Jimin said that it contained the indecent video of the professor. Yoona was afraid of the professor's retaliation and even imagined herself being arrested by the police. In order to overcome her inner fear, Yoona began to drink heavily. Seeing that the situation was not good, Jimin called Miho. It turned out that Miho had seen Jimin filming the indecent video of the professor at the freshman welcome party. Yuna's wish was to go to college, but she ended up being ostracized for doing a good deed. Miho didn't want Yuna to die so tragically, so he deliberately called Jimin over. He even asked about Yuna in front of her. Jimin felt a little ashamed after listening to Ague. Yuna was ostracized because of them, and she even helped him on the subway. After this conversation, Jimin agreed to give the video to Yuna. At that moment, Junwoo and Teacher Jean were preparing a candlelit dinner, drinking red wine. Teacher Jean couldn't help but sigh that time was passing so slowly. It turned out that the two had been secretly together all along. She was still thinking about Junwoo getting divorced in March and then announcing their relationship in September. They would then get married in May of next year. Teacher Jean took the opportunity to ask Junwoo if he had obtained the guarantee letter. The two clinked their glasses again to celebrate obtaining the guarantee letter. It turned out that after Yuna announced that she would postpone the divorce for 3 months, Junwoo ran to Teacher Jean for comfort. In order to prevent her wedding date from changing again, Teacher Jean gave Junwoo an idea. She suggested that Junwoo ask Yuna to write a guarantee letter. At this time, Yuna was drunk without realizing it. Jimin was afraid that something would happen to Yuna, so he called Miho. When Miho arrived at the bar, he saw that Yuna was already out of her mind, babbling about going to college. Miho asked her if she really wanted to finish her studies. Yuna regretted her decision to do the right thing. The next day, Yuna woke up and found herself at home. She vaguely remembered Miho taking her home. Miho reminded her of how she had defeated the scumbag in the past. It turned out that when Yuna was in high school, there was a man who frequently harassed students in the neighborhood. Yuna teamed up with Miho to deal with the man. After hesitating for a night, Yuna finally decided to confront the professor head-on. She sent an email to the professor informing him that she was resigning immediately. The professor pretended to be calm and prepared to consult a lawyer. Miho came out and kindly told the professor not to bother with a lawyer, because he had seen everything that happened that night. After doing all this, Miho asked Yuna to come to his studio. Yuna came over, confused, and Miho gave her a job. Yuna was confused as she looked at the script. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Miho asked her to greet the guest. Yuna looked up and saw that it was her husband. Miho deliberately hugged Yuna. Yuna felt guilty and lowered her head, whispering, "My child." Miho pretended to react as if he hadn't realized they were married and quickly let go of Yuna. He even pretended to scold Yuna for not introducing them. He explained to Junwoo that he was Yuna's best friend from high school. Yuna also felt embarrassed and apologized to her husband. Seeing Yuna's humble attitude, Miho was a little puzzled. After work, they all sent Junwoo home together. Miho pretended to be a gentleman and opened the car door for Junwoo, who had no choice but to get in. Junwoo looked at his two high school classmates who were so close and felt like an outsider. As soon as Yuna returned to the studio, she started to blame Miho for being unreasonable. Miho knew that she was afraid that her husband would find out that she was secretly attending college, yet he still arranged for them to meet. Miho said that he was helping Yuna. Yuna was so scared that she took a half step back. She asked Miho why he was suddenly being so nice to her. Miho just told her to get back to work. The two worked until 8 p.m. Yuna was starving. Miho told her to wait a little longer and they would eat together with his assistant. Just then, his assistant rushed over and said that his mother was sick and he couldn't work anymore. The 2 movie tickets would go to waste. He asked Yuna to take a look for him. Miho picked up the movie tickets he had bought earlier and said, "Your husband agreed that you could come home late, so let's go see the movie together." So the two of them went to the movie theater together. After the movie, they ate barbecue skewers together. The two of them, whose relationship had eased, finally started chatting casually. Yuna asked Miho if he was married. Miho said he didn't want to get married, because he didn't want a woman like Yuna who would only live for her husband once she got married. Yuna asked Miho why he deliberately complimented her. Miho said honestly that it was because she was a good person. After leaving the studio, Junwoo went straight to his date with Teacher Jean. While eating dinner, the two of them were still thinking about the studio and were afraid that Miho would cause trouble between them. Teacher Jean felt strange and thought that Junwoo had encountered another problem with the project. Junwoo made an excuse to leave, but when he got home, he found that Yuna wasn't there. This time, it was finally his turn to wait for Yuna at home. When he heard a noise at the door, he thought it was Yuna and hurried out. When Junwoo saw it was his son, he returned to his study dejectedly. As he stood by the window, he saw Miho sending Yuna home. Miho even opened the car door for Yuna. What was even more unbelievable was that the two were whispering to each other. Junwoo watched Yuna tiptoe into her room and then motioned for her to come to the study to talk. After closing the door, He couldn't help but scold Yuna for coming home so late. He then nervously asked Yuna if she had told Miho about their divorce. Junwoo added that he couldn't let their son hear rumors about Yuna at school. Her husband's excessive concern made Yuna suspicious. She asked her husband why he was talking so much tonight. Junwoo awkwardly yawned and pretended to be tired and wanted to go to sleep. The next day, Yuna received a call from Jimin and learned that the professor was resigning. The two became good friends because of this. Miho, having helped Yuna fulfill a wish, went to teacher Jin's office to resolve another issue. He returned the pen he had found to teacher Jin and reminded him to be careful when dating. Yuna finally settles into college life. She joins the dance club to complete the couple's task of marriage and romance. When she sees her classmates rehearsing a dance, she can't help but join in. Her classmates realize that Yuna is the person they've been looking for and quickly send a message to the club leader. Yuna is in the middle of her dance club interview when she turns around and sees the club leader. She quickly explains that she was called in for an interview. Taejun says that since she's already been interviewed, she might as well join. Then the two of them ate dinner and took pictures to complete the couple's task. At the dinner table, Yuna thanked Taejun for speaking up for her in class earlier. Taejun was a little embarrassed to hear this. This harmonious scene happened to be seen by Miho's assistant. She hurriedly told Miho the news. The assistant was especially happy that Yuna was finally living a normal life with her help. On her way back, she ran into Yuna's husband again. In order to leave Yuna with beautiful memories of love, she gave Junwoo the tickets to the stage play she had planned to see with her mother. She also specifically told Junwoo to be sure to go see it with his lover. After the club activities ended, Yuna was caught by her son sneaking off to college. Sure enough, when she got home that night, she was scolded by her husband. Junwoo told her to apply for withdrawal from college immediately. Yuna looked apologetic but was firm in her decision not to withdraw from school. Hearing their son's voice, the two left in an unhappy mood. Yuna then went to her son's room. Her son also didn't understand why she wanted him to withdraw from school. Yuna patiently assured her son that she would never interfere with his school life. Even if they met, they would act like strangers. Junwoo wanted to talk to Yuna again, but the door was locked. No matter how hard he knocked, Yuna wouldn't open the door. The next day, when Yuna came out of her room, she saw her father and son sitting on the sofa, ready to confront her. She ignored them and left the house. At school, Miho gave Yuna 2 tickets to a stage play as payment for her work. Miho quickly saw that Yuna had ignored his son. At that moment, Junwoo, who was in his car, saw everything and went straight to Miho's office. He asked Miho if he had known all along that Yuna was going to school. Miho angrily asked why he had to say that. When he returned to the studio to work, he saw the assistant who was supposed to be watching the play. The assistant explained that she had given the tickets to Junwoo to help reconcile Yuna and her husband. Miho was stunned upon hearing this. He hurriedly called Yuna but couldn't get through. Miho rushed to the play's performance venue in a panic. Unexpectedly, Yuna had already seen her husband taking care of another woman. Miho hurriedly covered Yuna's eyes so that she wouldn't be shocked. However, Yuna pushed him away, wanting to see what was going on. Junwoo suddenly walked towards her, scaring her into running away. Miho followed her, wanting to comfort Yuna. Yuna wanted to calm herself down, so she refused. Walking alone on the road, she recalled how her husband had rejected her 2 years ago for being ignorant and asked for a divorce. At that time, she felt sorry for her husband because she was uneducated. She never imagined that her husband had changed so much. Miho was worried about Yuna, so he secretly drove after her and accompanied her. When he saw Yuna's best friend come to accompany her, Miho stood silently behind them and listened to Yuna cry to her best friend about the injustices she had suffered over the past 20 years. Miho returned to his studio in a rage. Seeing this, his assistant hurriedly asked what was going on. Miho blamed his assistant for giving the tickets to Junwoo and scolded himself for not protecting Yuna. At this moment, Yuna pretended that nothing had happened and tidied up her son's room as usual. When Junwoo returned, he asked Yuna to divorce him immediately. Yuna looked at her husband in front of her and felt sick. She didn't want to stay there a minute longer. The next day, Miho accidentally ran into Junwoo. He deliberately asked Junwoo if he had gone to see the show with Yuna. Junwoo lied and said that he had something to do and gave the tickets to someone else. Miho looked at this man who was lying through his teeth and wanted to punch him, but when he saw Yuna coming, he held back his temper and left. Miho came to the club and saw that Yuna was not feeling well but was still cleaning frantically. He thought about how painful it must be for Yuna. Miho wanted to ease Yuna's pain, so he found Yuna's best friend. Hayami was confused as to why Miho would come to her. Miho said that he already knew that Yuna had a terminal illness. He also saw the wish Yuna wrote in her suicide note, so he wanted to ask Hayami to help him fulfill Yuna's wish. Hayami agreed. but she didn't tell him that Yuna had been misdiagnosed. On April Fool's Day, college students dress up in high school uniforms. Hayami pulled Yuna into changing into her school uniform and they went to an empty lot. Yuna suddenly noticed Miho, who was also wearing a high school uniform. Miho calmly said he wanted to take them out to play. The three adults walked down the street wearing high school uniforms. Junwoo saw this and immediately stopped his car. Miho saw Junwoo and immediately squeezed between Yuna and Hayami. The three of them walked to their high school and saw Jaeho, a good friend from high school. Yuna looked confused. Jaeho said that Miho had arranged a trip to relive their high school memories. The four of them visited their old classrooms and reminisced about high school. Before they knew it, they had walked to the place where the three of them first met. Yuna and her best friend became friends after a fight. It turned out that Yuna's grandmother was the owner of a tteokguk shop. Her grandmother was afraid that Yuna would be mocked and bullied by her classmates because her family sold stir-fried rice cakes. She specifically instructed Yuna to act like a stranger in front of her classmates. Meanwhile, Hayami, who was trying to maintain her figure for dancing, would only order 5 rice cakes each time she visited the shop. However, Yuna's grandmother would always give her extra. As a result, Hayami would bully Yuna. The four of them left behind beautiful memories at school. Later, they went to an old-fashioned bar to dance. On the bus, someone was staring at Yuna, making her feel embarrassed, so she hid behind Miho. The driver suddenly braked, causing Yuna to hug Miho from behind. At that moment, there was an empty seat in front of Miho, so he let Yuna sit down. Yuna, still shy from the hug, looked out the window. Miho's eyes were also fixed on the window, watching Yuna's reflection in the glass. After getting off the bus, Miho wanted to walk Yuna home, but Yuna said that she was old enough not to encounter bad people. She felt like this day was like a lie, because Yuna had always lived a very difficult life. And today, meeting her high school friends after such a long time and doing something she had always wanted to do felt like a dream. Miho watched Yuna's happy back and silently hoped that she would always live like this. Yuna was waiting for the elevator when she spotted her son wearing the same school uniform. She couldn't help but worry about what would happen if her husband found out. The mother and son sneaked into the house, but were caught by her husband, who had been waiting all along. Junwoo questioned them about why they were wearing school uniforms. Yuna's encouragement for her son to go to the bar made her husband feel incomprehensible. Yuna said that studying should be balanced with rest and went into the room. Junwoo wanted to say something else but was shut out by Yuna. The next morning, Miho sent Yuna a text message asking her to come to the studio to work that night. However, in order to escape her husband's financial control, Yuna found a part-time job at a supermarket. She went straight to the supermarket that night and forgot about her date with Miho. When Miho saw that it was time and Yuna hadn't arrived, he called her. Then he rushed to the supermarket and dragged Yuna out. Miho accused her of having a terminal illness and asked why she was still working. Yuna said that she had been misdiagnosed and was not sick. Miho finally breathed a sigh of relief and sat down on the ground. To thank Miho for taking care of her during this time, Yuna made some special food. When Junwoo saw it, he thought his wife loved him too much. He asked his wife why she made so many lunchboxes. Yuna said that she made them especially for Miho. Junwoo said angrily that Miho was the kind of person one should not associate with. When he saw Yuna go back to her room, Junwoo couldn't help but secretly take one and try it. He thought it tasted good and secretly tried a few more. Yuna arrived at the school and wanted to give her son the food she had made for him, but then she remembered that she had promised her son that they would pretend to be strangers at school, so she gave the lunchbox she had prepared to her son's girlfriend. Yuna saw her son happily eating and was about to leave, but then she saw her husband walking toward her son. Yuna immediately ran to where her son was and pulled the girl away. Mark looked confused, but then he turned around and saw his father. Yuna then received a text message from her son asking to see her. As soon as the mother and son met, Mark couldn't wait to ask his mother how she found out about his relationship. It turned out that Yuna had seen him and his girlfriend arguing that day. Mark asked his mother why she didn't tell his father about his relationship, causing him to get scolded. Yuna believed that her son should enjoy his youth at this age. If his father found out, he would definitely make them break up. After talking with her son, Yuna went to the studio to find Miho. Miho told Yuna not to look for him anymore. Yuna was puzzled. Wasn't there a lot of work that needed to be done? Miho said without mercy that Yuna was just using pity as an excuse. Yuna refused to give up and said, "Aren't we friends? We just made up." Miho said coldly that if he had known Yuna wouldn't die, he wouldn't have wasted so much time on her. Yuna retorted, "Who told you to feel sorry for me? It turned out that Miho had found Hayami after learning about Yuna's misdiagnosis. He asked Hayami why she didn't tell him about Yuna's misdiagnosis. Hayami said that Miho used to bully Yuna at school, and that this was Yuna's revenge. Miho asked Hayami again, after going through so much, does Yuna still want to live a life where she has to look up to her husband? Hayami hesitated, but in the end, she didn't tell Miho about Yuna's divorce agreement. She asked Miho to stop meddling in Yuna's affairs. Miho suddenly felt like a fool. He had wasted so much time and energy on someone who was misdiagnosed. Early in the morning, Yuna came to the storage locker to get her belongings, but unexpectedly ran into Miho, who was looking for trouble. Miho urged Yuna to move out quickly. Yuna kicked the locker door and left angrily. Miho was about to lock the locker when he saw Yuna's cell phone. Then he smiled maliciously and locked the locker. Miho returned to the studio and told his assistant to tell Junwoo that he would not be cooperating on the project. He wants to get Yuna and her husband out of his life. Junwoo arrives at the studio in a rage and asks Miho if he has been playing with him because of Yuna. Yuna then discovers that her cell phone is missing and rushes to the storage locker to look for it. After confirming that her cell phone is locked in the locker, she looks everywhere for Miho. Miho pretends not to hear her and prepares to drive away. When Yuna catches up with him, he deliberately drives away. Seeing that Yuna was getting angry, he stopped the car. Yuna anxiously asked Miho for the locker key. Miho said he had to go to class. Yuna waited for Miho to finish his performance class. As soon as class was over, Yuna chased after Miho for the key. Miho said he had forgotten the key in his office. Yuna was afraid that she wouldn't be able to answer her part-time job phone call, so she hurriedly said she would go to the office to get the key herself. Miho said that not just anyone could go to that office. Yuna was very sad and afraid of being discovered, so she ran to the restroom to cry. Teacher Jean was afraid that the crying person would feel embarrassed, so he hurriedly left without taking his phone. Yuna heard a phone ringing and hurriedly chased after Teacher Jean. Unexpectedly, a delivery man handed Yuna a large bouquet of flowers. After receiving the flowers, Yuna couldn't help but ask Teacher Jean who had sent them. Yuna was also puzzled about who the sender was. However, Yuna immediately ruled out her husband, because Junwoo would always give her a small red envelope on her birthday every year. Yuna happily placed the flowers she received in a vase. This was the first bouquet she had ever received in her life. She couldn't help but keep smelling the flowers. Miho received a text message saying that the flowers had been delivered successfully, and realized that he had forgotten to cancel the flowers he had ordered earlier. He thought of the words he had written on his business card and felt a wave of regret. When Junwoo asked Teacher Jean to go to an art exhibition, he couldn't help but think of the scene when they first met. It was also at this art exhibition that Junwoo was immediately attracted to Teacher Jean. Seeing Teacher Jean about to faint, he immediately ran over to her. Just like that, the two became lovers. Both of them were affected by the flowers Yuna received. Teacher Jean envied Yuna for being able to receive flowers from her lover in public, while she could only hide and meet in secret. At that moment, she remembered Miho's previous advice. Teacher Jin's feelings for Junwoo began to waver. She resented this love that couldn't be seen by others. In order to avoid suspicion, the two had to pretend that they weren't very familiar with each other. Seeing this, Junwoo hurriedly comforted Teacher Jean, saying that he was about to get divorced. Soon, we will be able to be together openly. After receiving this assurance, Teacher Jean asked Junwoo why he had come out on a date. Junwoo originally wanted to tell Teacher Jean that Miho had terminated his project contract. Seeing that Teacher Jean was in a bad mood, he quickly changed the subject. After the date, Junwoo went to Yuna's bedside and whispered in her ear like a hypnotist, urging her to drop out of school. The next day, Miho took his phone out of the cabinet. He discovered that Junwoo had been calling Yuna repeatedly, fearing it would affect Yuna's marriage. Miho immediately went to give Yuna her phone. To his surprise, he bumped into Yuna, who was coming to get her phone. At that moment, Junwoo's phone rang again, inviting Yuna to meet him at the restaurant. As soon as they met, Junwoo handed Yuna a withdrawal form. He said mercifully that as long as Yuna withdrew from school, he wouldn't divorce her. Yuna directly said that even if they divorced, she would complete her studies. She then tore up the withdrawal form. Junwoo threatened Yuna that if they divorced, he would take custody of their son. Yuna thought her husband was joking. She asked him if the other woman would agree to him taking custody of their son. Junwoo suddenly panicked and hurriedly asked Yuna why she was saying that. Yuna directly said that Hayami had seen him helping a woman carry her bag while watching a play. Before Junwoo could explain, Yuna interrupted him. When we were abroad, You didn't even want to carry my bag. Yoona didn't want to say anything more to her husband at that moment. She directly exposed the fact that her husband had been seen holding hands with another woman. Ji-Woo came to his senses and hurriedly caught up with Yoona. He explained that he had signed the divorce agreement with Yoona before he started dating another woman. Yoona didn't want to listen to her husband's explanation and got on a bus. After returning to the office, Ji-Woo thought back to what had just happened at the restaurant and felt that Yoona was playing hard to get. A woman who knew that her husband had a new lover but refrained from saying anything. Wasn't that because she loved herself too much? Ji-Woo couldn't wait to get home that night and waited in his room for Yoona to return. He wanted to completely sever Yoona's feelings for him. The next morning, Miho was afraid that Yoona would be bullied by her husband because she didn't work with Ji-Woo while he was away. So he drove to the university gate early in the morning and waited for Yoona. When he saw Yoona coming, he immediately got out of the car and spoke to her. Miho wanted to see Yoona's reaction to this matter, but Yoona asked him if he had sent her the flowers. When Miho didn't answer, she blamed him for messing up her part-time job, knowing that he was in the wrong. Miho sarcastically insulted Yoona before leaving to save face. Then Miho went to Teacher Jin's office. He told Teacher Jin that Ji-Woo had withdrawn from the project. Ji-Woo hoped that his son would persuade Yoona to give up going to college. Mark agreed to let his mother continue her studies. Ji-Woo wanted to persuade his son to stand with him, but then he received a text message from Teacher Jin asking him to meet with him. As soon as they meet, Teacher Jin asks Ji-Woo why he quit Miho's project. Ji-Woo pretends to be calm and explains that he was just a figurehead in Miho's project. Teacher Jin says that he can't quit the project no matter what. Ji-Woo feels that his pride has been hurt. He decides to find investors and make a big success so that Teacher Jin will look up to him. Yoona watched her classmates rehearsing for the school festival dance and silently memorized the steps. Suddenly, a girl twisted her ankle. While everyone else was at a loss, Yoona used her experience from a previous dance injury to bandage her ankle. Yoona's skilled actions earned her the admiration of the other club members. Haran always stopped by Jaeho's restaurant to buy Miho's favorite stir-fried rice cakes whenever she went out. 2 years ago, Haran confessed her feelings to Miho but was rejected, so she stayed by his side as his assistant. Unfortunately, Miho's heart was already taken by Yoona. Haran had just given the stir-fried rice cakes to Miho, but Miho turned around and gave them to Yoona. Yoona felt the lunchbox and thought it was freshly made, so she asked Miho why he was throwing away the food. Miho replied that it was up to her whether she wanted it or not. Although Yoona was a bit upset with Miho, she couldn't bear to waste the food. After opening the lunchbox and taking a bite, she realized it tasted just like her grandmother's cooking. She quickly called Miho to ask where he bought the stir-fried rice cakes. After hanging up, Miho instructed his assistant not to tell Yoona the address of the restaurant. Haran was puzzled what was so secret about just a restaurant. It turned out that Miho was very close to Yoona's grandmother when he was in high school and often came to the restaurant to eat. Yoona ran to Miho's office and anxiously asked for the address of the rice cake restaurant, saying that she really missed her grandmother's cooking. Miho scolded her, saying that she didn't even attend her grandmother's funeral and had no right to miss her. Yoona was stunned, then found her best friend and asked her about Miho's relationship with his grandmother. She then learned that Miho had stayed at her grandmother's funeral for 3 days straight. Yoona finally understood why Miho's attitude toward her had changed so much. Yoona looked at her bucket list and realized that all of her wishes had been fulfilled with Miho's help. So the next day, Yoona loudly thanked Miho at school. Miho was a little upset to hear that Yoona was finally leaving him. After all, in high school, everyone had mocked Miho's dreams, and Yoona was the only one who had encouraged him. He felt that he had been a failure for bullying Yoona like that. That night, Miho went to find Yoona again. The two resolved their issues and made up in front of a convenience store. Because he had messed up Yoona's work before, Miho invited Yoona to his studio to help him. That day, Jimin complained to Yoona about his boss deducting his wages. Yoona arrived at Jimin's part-time job wearing a gorgeous outfit and asked Taejun to pretend to be her bodyguard to scare people. Under Yoona's powerful aura, the boss paid Jimin his wages. Taejun was even more impressed by Yoona. On the day of the school festival, the girls in the dance club couldn't perform because their feet were swollen. Taejun asked Yoona for help. Yoona was afraid of embarrassing herself and ran away. Unexpectedly, Miho saw this. Miho encouraged Yoona to be brave and go on stage to make up for her regret from 20 years ago. It turned out that Miho was the director of Yoona's show back then. Just as the show was about to start, Miho received a call that his father had fainted and missed Yoona's performance. In the end, with Miho's constant persuasion, Yoona finally mustered up the courage to go on stage and perform. Yoona shone on stage, stunning everyone. Miho recalled the past when he was always mocked by others during rehearsals. At that time, only Yuna would encourage him. The two even wrote time capsules to bless each other. Miho had planned to confess his feelings to Yuna after the performance, but his father's accident prevented him from doing so. It was also on that day that Ji-Woo was deeply captivated by Yuna's dancing. After the dance, Miho left without saying a word. He took out the letter he had written 20 years ago and realized that he still loved Yuna as much as he did back then. After the school festival, Yuna returned to the stage, imagining herself performing when she was young. She couldn't help but burst into tears. She would never be able to fulfill her childhood dream. The next day, Yuna made a special lunchbox to thank Miho. Miho treated Yuna's food as if it were a delicacy and couldn't bear to share it with anyone else. Miho's good mood didn't last long before teacher Jean informed him that he had to attend a 2-day seminar with Ji-Woo. He could only helplessly tell his assistant to pack his bags and join him at the seminar tomorrow. Mark was worried about his grades. If his grades were too low, his father would send him to the army. His girlfriend asked him what the standard for grades was. Mark couldn't remember, so he went to his father's study to look for the guarantee letter his father had written. Unexpectedly, he found the divorce agreement between his parents. The next day, Haran asked Yuna to deliver some materials to Miho for her. As a result, she ran into her husband, who was eating at the seminar. Yuna remembered that her husband had asked her to hide their relationship, so after giving Miho the materials, she wanted to leave immediately. However, teacher Jean stopped her and asked her to stay and eat with them. Yuna couldn't refuse and stayed. Seeing her husband's expression, Yuna quickly finished her dinner. This led to indigestion, and after the dinner party, she vomited. Miho saw that Yuna was indigested and took her aside to rest. Ji-Woo came to the seminar to secretly meet with teacher Jean. Feeling guilty, he bought stomach medicine for Yuna. However, he saw Miho massaging Yuna and became extremely angry, so he left. When Ji-Woo saw Miho again, he declared his ownership of Yuna. The two men engaged in a heated argument. At that moment, Miho's phone suddenly rang. Hayami called to remind Miho that she was just trying to create an opportunity for Yuna and her husband. Yuna didn't want to give up her husband and thought this was a good opportunity. Miho noticed Ji-Woo acting suspiciously and secretly followed him. He discovered that Ji-Woo was meeting with teacher Jean and planning their date for tomorrow. The next day, after the seminar, Miho suggested that the four of them have a bicycle race. Whoever arrived at the finish line last would treat everyone to dinner. Before Ji-Woo could agree, Miho rushed ahead and paired up with Yuna. Ji-Woo had no choice but to join the race. They started late, and teacher Jean wasn't in good shape. In the end, Miho and Yuna won the race thanks to their teamwork. Ji-Woo was about to treat everyone to dinner, but Miho unexpectedly said he wanted to eat at his house. He then dragged teacher Jean away, leaving Yuna and her husband staring at each other. Ji-Woo wasn't in the mood to eat either. He stepped on the gas and drove recklessly to catch up with Miho's car. When he saw Miho's car behind him, he was satisfied. Then they went to a service area to eat a big meal, but Yuna couldn't eat anything because of indigestion. Ji-Woo noticed that Yuna was in a bad mood, so he bought a bouquet of flowers. Then he asked Yuna to keep her distance from Miho. Yuna angrily told her husband that he had no right to control her. The two returned home in silence. Miho secretly waited downstairs at Yuna's house. When he saw Yuna holding a bouquet of flowers, he felt that everything he had done was worth it. Back at the studio, Miho asked his assistant when she started meddling in other people's business. Haran hurriedly explained that she didn't want to see Miho fall in love with someone who wouldn't work out. After hearing his assistant's words, Miho fell into deep thought. He took the memories of Yuna and prepared to burn them, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. The next day, Yuna arrived at Miho's studio with a look of excitement on her face. She told Miho about how her partner had arranged a couple's date. Miho felt that these were things a boyfriend should do. He curiously asked Yuna how she had dated in the past. Yuna's expression changed, and she made up an excuse to go back to work, recalling the past, when her son was sick and crying uncontrollably. Her husband not only ignored her but also snapped at her. Yuna could only helplessly hold her child and go out. After getting the investment, Ji-Woo came to Miho's studio to show off. He said triumphantly that he would never participate in Miho's project again. He also ordered Miho to stay away from Yuna. Ji-Woo also asked Miho why he was playing between Yuna and teacher Jean. Miho directly exposed Junwoo's dirty deeds. He also warned Ji-Woo to handle the matter without Yuna's knowledge, so as not to affect her normal college life. Ji-Woo was exposed and panicked, taking a sip of water to hide his feelings. Soon, he was questioned by teacher Jean again. Ji-Woo hurriedly explained that working under Miho was too stifling, and that working for a large corporation sounded more prestigious. Teacher Jean began to doubt whether the man in front of him really wanted to marry her. After learning about his parents' divorce agreement, Mark found Hyami. He didn't expect that his aunt, whom he had never met before, would recognize him at first glance. Mark couldn't help but ask Hyami how she recognized him. After a brief exchange, Mark told her that he had seen his parents' divorce agreement. He asked her why his mother wanted to divorce him and still send him to college. Seeing this, Hyami told Mark everything she knew. After learning the whole truth, Mark went to his father's study. He clung to the last shred of hope and said that his mother went to college for his father. Ji-Woo interrupted his son and found an excuse to send him away. He thought about his lover's words and realized that he still loved his wife. However, as an ordinary husband, he preferred the status of being the son-in-law of a congressman. When Mark returned to his room, he found his mother cleaning up his room again. He felt uncomfortable and wronged. Yuna proudly told her son that she had earned the money to buy the quilt. Mark blamed his mother for not telling him that she was sick. Yuna was stunned when she heard her son's words. Mark then took out the divorce agreement. Yuna quickly apologized and explained that she planned to enjoy college life first and then tell her son about it later. Mark said that he couldn't spend the rest of his life with his mother like that. After the knot in their hearts was finally untied, Yuna mentioned the divorce to her son, hoping that he would agree with her decision. Mark remembered how talented and stunning his mother was on the school anniversary stage, so he decided to let go and let his mother live a normal life. The next day, Yuna asked her husband to meet her at a restaurant. She told him to hurry up and go to the court to file for divorce. Ji-Woo was confused. He was the one who had asked for the divorce. How could the two of them be in completely opposite positions? Yuna even said that she had seen him with another woman watching a play that day. Ji-Woo felt that his dignity had been challenged and suddenly didn't want to divorce anymore. With her son's support, Yuna was confident and insisted on divorcing. Ji-Woo said he had made plans with someone else and fled in a panic while Yuna was on the phone. Although Ji-Woo refused Yuna's divorce request, he immediately ordered a flower basket for Teacher Jean. However, the card on the flower basket accidentally fell off. Teacher Jean, who received the flowers, mistakenly thought the sender was Miho. She hurriedly drove to find Miho to confront him. Unexpectedly, she accidentally ran into Miho and Yuna walking side by side. Teacher Jean then investigated Yuna's identity. She discovered that her boyfriend was actually Yuna's husband. Teacher Jean went straight to Ji-Woo to question him. However, Ji-Woo shifted all the blame onto Yuna. He said that Yuna loved him so much that she hid it from her family and secretly got into college. He had only found out about it recently. Seeing Teacher Jean in a bad mood, Ji-Woo hurried to comfort her. He was also trying to find a solution and had even ordered a flower basket for Teacher Jean. Teacher Jean suddenly recalled Miho's advice from before. She realized that Miho had known everything all along. She was so angry that she collapsed onto the sofa. Seeing this situation was bad, Ji-Woo made an excuse and left. Miho went to the bank to exchange some new bills to pay Yuna. On his way back, he ran into Yuna. Yuna curiously asked Miho why he had gone to Russia to study abroad. Miho confronted her, asking why she was prying into his personal life. The three of them worked in harmony until late at night. Haran had other matters to attend to, so she asked Yuna to organize the meeting notes before leaving. Miho felt awkward being alone with Yuna, so he made up an excuse and sent her home. Yuna was in a good mood after receiving her part-time job payment from a friend and wanted to treat Miho to dinner. Not only did Miho refuse, but he also said seriously that he didn't pay Yuna out of friendship. He said it was because she had done an excellent job and deserved the payment. He told Yuna to take the money and spend it on her family. Yuna was a little sad to see Miho suddenly become so serious. Miho watched Yuna walk home and was startled by her sudden turnaround, so he hid. As soon as Yuna got home, she saw her husband waiting for her. The two went to the study, and before her husband could say anything, Yuna asked him what time they would get divorced tomorrow. Ji-Woo made all kinds of excuses and refused to agree to the divorce. Yuna thought her husband's behavior was ridiculous. Ji-Woo pulled out a pledge letter and asked Yuna to think it over carefully. Yuna tore the paper into pieces. She warned her husband that if he didn't agree to divorce tomorrow, she would take legal action. Ji-Woo explained that he was currently being considered for a promotion and couldn't afford any negative publicity. Yuna agreed for her son's sake. Fearing her husband might change his mind, she carefully asked for the specific date and wrote it on the calendar. After putting the divorce on the agenda, Yuna began planning her future living expenses. When she heard her son coming home, she took out part of her recently received salary and gave it to him. The next day, while Yuna was struggling with a PowerPoint presentation, she heard her son's voice. The mother and son grew even closer due to their shared secret. When it was time to go to work, Yuna prepared to go to the classroom to put away her books. While sending a text message, the printed materials she was holding fell out. Ji-Woo happened to see it, picked it up, gave it to Yuna, and watched her leave. This scene was seen by Teacher Jean. who was passing by. Yuna was walking down the road when she felt like someone was following her. Through a mirror on the side of the road, she saw Teacher Jean acting suspiciously. She felt a little strange and went to the restroom to confirm that it was Teacher Jean who was following her. Sure enough, Teacher Jean followed her in and pretended to be casual as he struck up a conversation with Yuna. Just as Teacher Jean was about to get to the point, his phone rang. Yuna saw that it was her cousin and became suspicious. Teacher Jean pretended to answer the phone and quickly left. Yuna then went to the studio and started cleaning. Thinking that Miho was probably busy and wouldn't have time to clean, she went to the second floor. This was where Miho usually rested. At that moment, Miho returned and headed straight for the second floor. The two met at the staircase. Yuna was startled by Miho's sudden appearance. They accidentally hugged each other and were both stunned. Quickly changing the subject awkwardly, Yuna explained that she wanted to wash the dirty pillowcase. Miho was flustered, afraid that Yuna would discover the box containing his confession letter. After seeing Yuna leave, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Miho felt that being alone with Yuna was dangerous, so he found an excuse to ask her to leave. Yuna's heart was racing from the embrace. After hearing Miho's suggestion, she quickly left the studio. Jimin had always trusted Yuna after she helped her get her wages back last time. This time, she discovered that the security grill at her home had been damaged and called the police. The police asked Jimin to check the situation before filing a report. Jimin's family wasn't around, and she was afraid to go home alone, so she called Yuna. Yuna was also a weak woman, so she picked up 2 sticks on the way to protect herself. After gathering her courage, she walked into Jimin's house. She carefully looked around and found that there was only a wardrobe where someone could hide. Yuna nervously opened the wardrobe with the sticks in her hands and saw that no one was inside, finally letting out a sigh of relief. It was too late, so Jimin suggested that Miho come over to help fix the security window. Yuna felt a little awkward after the hug, so she called Taejun over to help with the repairs. However, the security window was too badly damaged and had to be replaced. Jimin didn't dare to stay alone in the house, so the 3 of them went to a sauna to spend the night. Yuna had already filed for divorce from her husband, so she only sent her son a text message saying she would be staying out overnight. Junwoo had to withdraw from the cooperation with the large corporation under the interference of Teacher Jean. He sent an email to his professor in Germany seeking new cooperation opportunities. After proudly completing a series of operations, he realized that Yuna had not yet returned home. Junwoo waited at the entrance of the community for more than an hour. Seeing that Yuna had not yet returned, he couldn't help but imagine Yuna was currently on a date with Miho. He hurriedly drove to Miho's studio. Miho looked at Junwoo suspiciously and told him that Yuna wasn't there. He then hurriedly called Yuna's best friend. Junwoo realized that he didn't understand Yuna at all anymore. Seeing Miho's nervousness, he felt a little jealous. Junwoo heard that Hayami didn't know where Yuna had gone and turned to leave, but Miho called him back. Miho asked him if he came here because he was worried about Yuna. Junwoo said, "Am I here because I miss you?" Miho hurriedly called Yuna, but no one answered. He called again and found out where Yuna was. At that moment, Yuna was in a sweat room chatting with her friends. She looked up and saw Miho. Miho scolded her for being careless and told her to go home and check her email. He also tells Taejun not to worry and go to work, saying that he will take care of them himself. Seeing this, Taejun leaves with peace of mind. Jimin sees that Taejun left in such a hurry that he forgot his keys, so he follows him out. After they leave, Yuna asks Miho why he sent her home in front of Jimin. Yuna says that she is worried about Jimin and refuses to go back. Miho tries to persuade her, but just then, Jimin returns. Yuna and Jimin discussed that they would sleep until they woke up naturally. Then Miho openly watched Yuna sleep. Mark heard the sound of someone opening the door and thought it was his mother. He immediately said, "Mom, didn't you say you weren't coming back today?" Junwoo angrily asked his son why he hid this from him. Mark asked his father when he ever cared about his mother. Jimin went to the bathroom in the middle of the night and found Yuna and Miho sleeping together. Yuna suddenly woke up from the heat and opened her eyes to see Miho. Yuna was wide awake and left the sauna in a panic. She heard her heart beating so fast that she thought she was having a heart attack. Miho woke up and saw that Yuna was gone, so he quickly called her. Yuna explained that she was too hot sleeping in the sauna, so she went home. Miho told Yuna to tell her husband. Yuna directly asked Miho to take care of Jimin. After hanging up, Yuna's father unconsciously touched his hot face and felt strange that his heart was beating so fast just from making a phone call. In the morning, Miho changed the security window for Jimin and went to work. Yuna saw him and wanted to say hello to Miho, but when she thought about how her heart raced when she saw Miho, She hid. Miho went straight to the office and was surprised to find Teacher Jean there to tell him that there had been a misunderstanding. Teacher Jean threatened Miho not to say anything he shouldn't at school. As a result, Miho found out that Yuna was getting a divorce. Miho immediately felt guilty for blaming Yuna for being spineless without knowing the truth. He didn't dare to question her loudly when he saw her husband on a date outside. As a result, he unintentionally hurt Yuna with his prejudice. Yuna was already suffering from her divorce. He should have been nicer to her. Yuna and Haran were preparing takeout in the studio. She suddenly remembered the stir-fried rice cakes Miho had given her and hurriedly asked Haran for the address of the restaurant. Yuna invited her best friend to come with her to the restaurant and discovered that the owner was her high school friend Jae-ho. Jae-ho warmly welcomed Yuna and Hyami. He told Yuna that after his grandmother passed away, Miho found the secret recipe for the stir-fried rice cakes while sorting through her belongings. He then bought the restaurant and continued to run it, ensuring that Yuna's grandmother's recipe wouldn't be lost. After eating the stir-fried rice cakes she hadn't tasted in years, Yuna couldn't help but burst into tears. Seeing this, Jae-ho called Miho. Unexpectedly, Miho told him to close the shop and let Yuna cry her heart out. Jae-ho couldn't help but complain that Miho was joking with him. When he found out about Yuna's divorce, Miho decided to take care of her as if she were his sister. He told Jae-ho that he wasn't joking and to let Yuna cry it out. Not long after, Yuna composed herself and went to the studio to prepare for work. Miho then said he had to go out for a meeting. The group then headed to the wilderness to prepare for camping. After setting up the tent, Yuna was about to cook when Miho pushed her onto a chair and made her read the script. Yuna's heart raced as Miho suddenly leaned in close. She blushed and turned her head away, unable to look at Miho directly. Miho got up and started cooking. While reading the script, Yuna couldn't help but stare at Miho cooking. The three of them sat at a small table. Yuna excitedly picked up a spoon and tasted the soup. Miho looked at her expectantly, waiting for her evaluation. Yuna curiously asked Miho why he had cooked so much food. Miho's eyes shifted nervously. It turned out that Miho had made up an excuse to go camping in order to cheer Yuna up. Haran quickly changed the subject. Yuna felt guilty about her grandmother and came to find Miho. Miho took the opportunity to ask Yuna to call him Big Brother. Yuna was taken aback, but the two of them ended up arguing childishly about it. In the end, Yuna called him Big Brother in a proud manner. The two of them happily finished washing the dishes. When Yuna returned home, she received a text message from Miho. She sent a happy thank you message. The next day, Mark was on a date with his girlfriend when he discovered that his mother was working at a convenience store. He immediately made up an excuse and ended the date. Mark hurried home and confronted his father, asking if he knew that his mother was working. Ji-Woo was also shocked to hear his son's words. Mark accused his father of being irresponsible and said he should have paid for his mother's college tuition. How could his father let his mother work at a convenience store? Ji-Woo asked Yuna for the address of the convenience store and rushed over. When he arrived at the convenience store, he heard the store manager telling Yuna to take the expired food home to eat. Ji-Woo angrily confronted the store manager, asking why he was calling Yuna auntie. He couldn't help but scold Yuna for working in such a place. The store manager couldn't help but laugh. Ji-Woo heard this and swung his fist at the store manager. The store manager dodged the punch, and it hit the shelf, knocking Ji-Woo to the ground. In the end, Ji-Woo lost money and caused Yuna to lose her job. Yuna angrily asked her husband why he stopped her from working. Ji-Woo said that Yuna working at a convenience store made him lose face. Yuna said that they were already divorced and that her husband should not meddle in her business. Ji-Woo asked Yuna if she was going to date Miho. Yuna was speechless and left. When she arrived at the subway station, she saw a couple playing a game and remembered the stage play. Miho also saw his husband with another woman. Was Miho being so good to her because he felt sorry for her? Yuna immediately found Miho and confronted him, but before Miho could explain, Yuna ran away. The next day, Yuna called Haran and quit the job Miho had arranged for her. She looks for a job online and finds Miho looking for her again. Yuna doesn't even close the website she opened and runs away. Miho sees Yuna leaving and immediately chases after her. Just as Yuna is feeling troubled, Teacher Jean calls to ask her to talk to him. Yuna takes the opportunity to escape, leaving Miho alone. Miho lay down on a nearby stone bench in frustration but heard a couple arguing and kindly tried to mediate. After seeing the two reconcile, he left casually. Yuna went to Teacher Jin's office. Teacher Jin said he would introduce her to a part-time job. Yuna immediately exposed Teacher Jin's true colors. She directly said that she had seen her cousin's phone number and her husband's phone number in the bathroom that day. Teacher Jin excitedly asked them when exactly they got divorced. Yuna said to wait until the school finished investigating their family members. Teacher Jin was a little confused. How could he not know about this? Seeing teacher Jin's expression, Yuna knew that her husband was lying to her. After leaving teacher Jin's office, she went straight to her husband and asked for a divorce. Before Junwoo could react, Yuna said that she had just seen teacher Jin. Junwoo hurriedly explained that he was just afraid that Yuna would be deceived by Miho. Yuna thought it was ridiculous. Junwoo was the one who had changed his mind. Now Junwoo was seriously saying that not divorcing was for her own good. Junwoo began to think about how Yuna knew about him and teacher Jin. He remembered that Miho had asked him to handle this matter. Junwoo immediately thought that Miho had told Yuna. He then stormed into Miho's office. Junwoo directly confronted Miho, asking him if he had been instigating Yuna to divorce him behind his back. Seeing Miho's innocent expression, Junwoo realized that Yuna was truly determined to divorce him. Miho also genuinely loved Yuna. He had only wanted to bring the two of them together for Yuna's sake. After learning that Yuna had made up her mind to divorce him, Miho fell into deep thought. He called Yuna again and asked her to come back to help him. When Yuna heard her assistant's busy voice on the phone, she returned to work. After work, Miho drove Yuna home. Yuna said that she had only come to repay a favor and would not be coming to Miho's studio to work anymore. Seeing that Yuna was still blaming him, Miho expressed his feelings. "You are very special to me. That's why I've been so good to you." Then Miho took out a box containing a letter confessing his feelings and handed it to Yuna. He told Yuna to wait until she got home and was alone before opening it. The contents of the box would prove why Miho was so good to her. Yuna took the box to a nearby rest area. She opened the box and found a cassette tape inside. It was full of her favorite songs. She then found a blue envelope. When she opened it, she found a confession letter. Yuna was shocked and looked up to see that it was Miho. She hurriedly asked what it was. Miho said casually, "Of course, it's the confession letter I wrote to my first love." Miho recalled his high school days when everyone was mocking him. "Only you believed that I could become a famous director." Yuna couldn't remember this at all. Miho was a little disappointed. Yuna's words had changed his life, but she didn't even remember. Miho left after confessing his feelings, telling Yuna to think about it carefully before making a decision. Junwoo was in his study, fantasizing about how to convince Yuna to give up on the divorce. He even childishly hid Yuna's agreement. Now, the two of them were standing in the same place, but their identities had been reversed. Junwoo, in an attempt to win Yuna back, came up with two excuses. First, he wasn't a narcissistic person. Second, they had divorced because they had nothing in common. Junwoo asked Yuna to think it over carefully. Yuna found her husband disgusting and selfish. Junwoo tried to use their sweet memories to bring back the Yuna who had once left her hometown for love. 20 years ago, while Yuna was performing, someone accidentally stepped on her shoe, causing her to fall heavily. But Yuna didn't give up. She endured the pain and completed the entire performance. Junwoo saw this and fell in love with Yuna. He even bought medicine specifically to approach her during her performance. Yuna directly refused the medicine offered by the stranger. Junwoo then launched into a medical theory, scaring Yuna into believing that not applying the ointment would be fatal. Yuna reluctantly agreed to apply the ointment. Junwoo then applied it himself. The two met this way, and Junwoo asked Yuna to teach him how to dance. Yuna suddenly brought her husband into the conversation. At the time, she had seen her husband's back and was reminded of her deceased father. Yuna felt a sense of trust, but that was all in the past. Yuna, who was pregnant, followed her husband to Germany. When she asked her husband to find out if there were any Koreans living nearby, Junwoo just gave her a few vague answers and didn't bother to ask around. He didn't teach Yuna any everyday German phrases either. When Yuna was about to give birth, she couldn't ask anyone for help. She rolled around on the floor in pain for hours until her husband came home and took her to the hospital. Junwoo stammered and tried to explain himself, but Yuna said she regretted following her husband to Germany. She should have raised their son by herself. When Junwoo heard about their son, he felt hopeful again. He hoped that he could use their son to tie Yuna down. Yuna interrupted her husband and said that she would ask their son for his opinion. At this moment, Mark had heard everything his parents said. The next day, Miho came to school early, hoping to bump into Yuna. He didn't expect Hayami to find Yuna at that moment. Hayami said excitedly that she found out Miho still liked Yuna. Yuna wanted to brush it off, but Hayami directly listed the evidence that Miho liked Yuna. Yuna could only confess that Miho was her first love. Hayami curiously asked if Miho had confessed his feelings to Yuna. Yuna found it funny that Miho would like her when she was already a mother. At that moment, Mark sent a message asking his mother to come home that night to talk. At this moment, Hyami came to Miho's office again. She asked Miho directly if he still liked Yuna. Miho looked a little panicked and didn't know how to answer. Hyami told him directly that Yuna was going to get a job to support herself. Yuna was waiting in the classroom for teacher Jean to start class, but she didn't expect that the class would be postponed. After that, Yuna went to the university with two people from the performance group to drink and chat. Jimin said that drinking with friends on campus after class was like something out of a movie. So romantic. At that moment, Yuna's phone rang. She saw that it was Miho and didn't answer. Jimin saw this and teased Yuna about her relationship with Miho. Yuna had no choice but to answer the phone and complain to Miho for disturbing her during class. Miho said he knew class was cancelled, which is why he called. Yuna tried to make up an excuse, but Miho appeared right in front of her. Yuna was about to refuse, saying she wanted to chat with her friends, but Miho pulled her away and told the others to continue eating and drinking. Yuna's friends were very supportive and found an excuse to leave. Yuna said arrogantly that she would continue working at Miho's studio. Miho looked surprised, but then Yuna said she had something to do and couldn't go to work today. Miho walked Yuna to the bus stop. Seeing that Yuna hadn't listened to the songs on the cassette tape, he took the tape recorder out of his bag. The two sat on the bench at the bus stop and listened to the songs they liked in high school. Yuna couldn't help but ask Miho when he started liking her. Miho told Yuna to think about it carefully. Teacher Jean was embarrassed that Yuna had found out about his relationship, so he didn't dare to teach Yuna anymore. She then stormed into Junwoo's office. Junwoo looked surprised and asked Teacher Jean if she wasn't supposed to be teaching at this time. Teacher Jean said that Yuna knew about their relationship. She couldn't face her students anymore. After hearing this, Junwoo was only concerned about whether Yuna was really going to give up on him. Teacher Jean tried hard to control her emotions and asked Junwoo why he didn't believe her. When she heard Yuna say she wanted a divorce, she felt like she was being given something out of pity. Upon hearing the word divorce, Junwoo asked Teacher Jean to sit down so they could talk. He then told her that there had been a change in his divorce plans. Teacher Jean regretted letting Junwoo become a university professor. After a big fight with Teacher Jean, Junwoo was furious to learn that he had been hired through connections. He decided that he couldn't continue living like this. When he returned home that night, Mark told his father to go ahead with the divorce as previously agreed. He then said that he was now the reason for his parents' divorce and decided to move out of the house. Seeing his son like this, Junwoo immediately agreed to go through with the divorce this weekend. The next day, he remembered that a psychology professor at another prestigious university was retiring. He immediately asked a friend to introduce him to the professor. Thanks to Junwoo's efforts, the professor was delighted. When Yuna finished work and was about to leave, Miho handed her some job application materials. Yuna was puzzled by Miho's sudden concern. Miho hastily explained that as her senior, he was afraid that Yuna would go astray, so he wanted to give her some advice. Seeing that Yuna was about to leave, Miho made up an excuse and asked Yuna to accompany him to buy clothes. Yuna remembered how Haran had just helped Miho tidy up his clothes and felt very angry. Miho pretended to be disappointed that his assistant wasn't there. Yuna followed Miho to the clothing store with a proud attitude. When Miho came out of the fitting room, Yuna stared at him. Seeing this, Miho asked if she thought he was handsome. Yuna stubbornly said that the clothes he chose were nice. Then she picked out a set of clothes for Miho. At that moment, the store manager came over and asked Miho and Yuna if they were a couple. Miho deliberately repeated the words boyfriend and girlfriend to observe Yuna's reaction. He then explained to the store manager that they were brother and sister. After the two left the clothing store, Miho made an excuse to make a phone call and deliberately let Yuna see a job posting. Miho had specifically made a phone call to use his connections to find a job for Yuna in dance. He persuaded Yuna to go for an interview to see how it goes. Yuna just said that she would consider it. The next day, Yuna dressed up beautifully and went to work at the studio. Miho and his assistant were both stunned when they saw her. After work, Miho noticed that Junwoo had come to pick Yuna up. Haran couldn't help but ask Miho if Yuna would reconcile with her husband. Miho firmly replied that it was impossible. Junwoo drove Yuna to a party. It turned out that Junwoo wanted to transfer schools and had asked Yuna to help him save face. At the dinner table, the professor thanked Junwoo for helping him in 2000. The timing of this meeting happened to be the same day Yuna's grandmother passed away. Upon hearing this, Yuna instantly realized that her husband had prioritized his career over her and didn't let her come home for her grandmother's funeral. In her anger, she slapped her husband twice. She then ran to the rice cake shop her grandmother used to run but found it already closed. Upon returning home, Junwoo finally felt remorse and handed the divorce papers to Yoona. Yoona officially divorced and later went to Jaeho's rice cake shop. She used the scent of the rice cakes to reminisce about her late grandmother. She even became so consumed by her memories that she stayed up all night watching videos of her time with her grandmother. The next day, Yoona returned to the studio to work. Miho and the producers had just finished a meeting and were preparing for a meal, inviting Yoona to join them. Yoona said she wasn't feeling well and refused, so Miho deliberately left his phone in the studio. When everyone was about to eat, he asked his assistant to call Yoona and bring the phone over. Haran was very unhappy about Miho's favoritism towards Yoona. She lied to Miho and said that Yoona had already gone home. After the dinner, Miho returned to the studio and found Yoona sleeping on the sofa with sweat all over her head. Miho remembers that Yoona wasn't feeling well during the day, so he quickly touches her forehead. He hurriedly gets a blanket and medicine to take care of Yoona, because fever medicine cannot be taken on an empty stomach. Miho cooks some porridge and feeds it to Yoona. Miho takes care of Yoona all night long. In the morning, Yoona wakes up and finds Miho standing beside her. Looking at the table, she realizes that Miho has been taking care of her all night. Yoona couldn't help but reach out and touch Miho's hair. Seeing Miho's subconscious reaction, she suddenly came to her senses and fled the scene. Miho heard the door close and hurried after her. Seeing Yoona get into a taxi, he immediately called her. Yoona lied and said she had gone home early in the morning. Miho wanted to ask her more questions, but Yoona found an excuse and hurriedly hung up the phone. He didn't understand why Yoona lied. He remembered how Yoona had played with his hair that morning and realized that Yoona must have fallen in love with him. Thinking of this, Miho couldn't help but laugh out loud on the street. After returning to the studio, he asked his assistant to prepare the teaching materials for class. Haran was very angry when she saw the traces of someone sleeping on the sofa. Soon, Junwoo asked Miho to meet him and announced that he had divorced Yoona. He asked Miho provocatively if he knew about it. Miho asked Junwoo what he was trying to do. Junwoo formally declared war on Miho, saying he was going to win Yoona back. After class, Yoona ran into her ex-husband. Junwoo didn't say a word and bent down to tie Yoona's shoelaces. Yoona tried to dodge him but was pulled back by her ex-husband. He said it was all he could do. Junwoo remembered that Yoona had said she liked his back, so while tying her shoelaces, he tried hard to show Yoona his back. Seeing this, Yoona just wanted to leave her ex-husband and said that if he needed help at home, he could contact her. After teacher Jean had a big fight with Junwoo, she instructed 2 students to blackmail Junwoo. She is now waiting for Junwoo to come to her for help. Yoona was reading when she received a call from Haran, who was drunk, so she went to the bar. She didn't expect to hear that Haran liked Miho. The next day, Yoona thought about how her face would turn red and her heart would race when she saw Miho. Now that she couldn't work with Miho anymore, she went to a place she had seen a job posting and applied for a job. When Miho received Yoona's call, he heard Jaeho's voice. He went straight to Jaeho's restaurant and dragged Yoona away without saying a word. He asked Yoona why she was going to work there so quickly. Yoona had never told Miho about her big interview. She finally realized that it was Miho who had helped her find the job. Yoona stubbornly replied that she would never go back to work for Miho. Miho confessed his feelings to Yoona once again. Yoona was so shocked by this sudden confession that she started hiccuping. Miho hurriedly called Jaeho, who was peeking, to get some water. When Yoona stopped hiccuping, she started to think about Miho's confession and felt that it was all too ridiculous. She asked Miho how he knew about her divorce. After rejecting Miho's confession, Yoona was questioned by her best friend. The two of them meet at a coffee shop, where Yoona tells her best friend the whole story. She says that she doesn't want to date anyone right now. The next day, Miho comes to Yoona's apartment building. He asks Yoona to tell him why she doesn't like him. Then the two of them eat breakfast together. Yoona gets sauce on her mouth and is embarrassed that Miho will see her looking so silly, so she shyly turns her head away. After class, Miho takes Yoona to see the performance venue. The owner of the venue asked Miho to introduce Yoona. Miho immediately said that Yoona was his girlfriend. Yoona was so scared that she left in a hurry. Miho then took her to another place. When they got out of the car, Miho helped her unbuckle her seatbelt. Yoona thought he was going to do something else and was so scared that she raised her hands. Yoona got out of the car awkwardly and realized that this was where she and her partner had practiced their date. Miho casually said that all date spots are pretty much the same, but he wanted to see what this place was like. In the end, the two lay down on an empty piece of land and looked at a comic book. Yoona, who had been resistant at first, couldn't help but laugh out loud as she looked at the comic. Miho took the opportunity to move closer to Yoona and look at the same comic book side by side. Yoona, feeling shy, pushed Miho away, but to her surprise, Miho moved even closer. The two of them looked at the comic book with their minds wandering. After the date, Miho sent Yuna home by subway. Yuna curiously asked why he didn't drive her home. Miho explained that he wanted to do something they had never done before. Yuna felt embarrassed with Miho sitting next to her, so she looked around nervously. Just then, a seat became available across from Yuna. Miho moved from next to Yuna to across from her. Yuna mustered up her courage and stared at Miho. The next morning, Miho came to Yuna's house again. Yuna wanted to sort out her feelings, so she told Miho that she didn't need to prove that she didn't like him anymore. Miho listed a bunch of reasons why Yuna liked him. Yuna said helplessly, "Can we just be friends?" Miho firmly said no. Yuna told him not to show up around her anymore. Seeing Yuna's firm attitude, Miho could only go to school helplessly. When he saw Junwoo and teacher Jin meet, the two didn't even greet each other. Yuna saw Haran dressed up so beautifully in the studio and asked her if she was going on a date. Haran happily said that she was going to confess her feelings to Miho today, so she dressed up specially. Miho immediately compliments his assistant for looking different from before. When Yuna hears this, she freezes. Miho then asks his assistant to tell Yuna to bring the documents and coffee to his study. After returning to his study, Miho recalls the situation between Junwoo and teacher Jin and falls into deep thought. He doesn't even know that Yuna came to deliver the documents. Yuna thinks that Miho really doesn't like her, so she deliberately puts down her cup heavily. But Miho was too busy playing with a Rubik's Cube to pay any attention to her. After confirming the documents, Miho left with his assistant. In the car, Miho couldn't help but ask why his assistant was dressed so nicely. Haran said that she was going on a blind date, so she dressed up specially to provoke Yuna. Yuna now thinks that I'm going to confess my feelings to you. Miho was shocked when he heard this. At that moment, all Yuna could think about was Haran confessing her feelings to Miho. At that moment, her best friend called to tell her that Junwoo had sold the shop. Yuna immediately called Junwoo to ask what was going on. Junwoo panicked and said that he didn't have money to rent a house. Then he received a call saying he had been fired. Junwoo looked at the documents in his hand and realized that he had been caught bribing students. It turned out that he had received a blackmail letter earlier. If he wanted to keep it a secret, he had to pay a large sum of money. Junwoo wanted to ignore it because he didn't do it. Unexpectedly, he received another email. He was afraid that his scandal would be exposed, so he quickly sold his house and paid the blackmailer. This scene was captured on camera. Junwoo calmly thought about who would do such a thing. He thought that the most likely suspect was teacher Jin. Junwoo asked teacher Jin if she did it. Teacher Jin said that it was her revenge on Junwoo. Junwoo walked out in a daze and happened to encounter Miho, who was about to resign from teacher Jin. However, he didn't show off to Miho like usual and just left. Teacher Jin thought Junwoo had come back to beg for mercy and was ready to mock him. But before Miho could say much, he was chased away by the angry teacher Jin. Teacher Jin, who had forced him to attend class, did not try to stop him, which made him very confused. When Miho returned, he heard the assistant talking about Junwoo. At that moment, Hayami called Miho and asked him to find out why Junwoo was selling his shop. Miho finally understood what was going on between teacher Jin and Junwoo, so he asked someone to find out about the two students in the photo. After gathering all the clues, he went to find teacher Jin. Miho immediately exposed teacher Jin's evil deeds. Teacher Jin asked Miho what evidence he had. Miho directly revealed the personal information of the two students who were instructed by teacher Jin. He also threatened teacher Jin to delete all the scandals about Junwoo before Yuna saw the post. Otherwise, he would personally expose teacher Jin and Junwoo's relationship online. But teacher Jin still didn't want to give up his revenge on Junwoo. Miho asked teacher Jin how many days he would be happy if his revenge was successful. After all, teacher Jin had once truly loved Junwoo. Hearing this, teacher Jin finally relented. Teacher Jin walked through the school campus and thought about everything he had done. It was also that Junwoo and himself could hold hands openly on campus. Now, the two had become enemies, tormenting each other. Teacher Jin couldn't help but cry, but afraid of being discovered, he quickly wiped his tears away. In order to solve the current dilemma, teacher Jin asked Junwoo to meet him. As soon as Junwoo stood up, teacher Jin beat him up. When he picked up the documents that had been thrown on the table, he discovered that the person who bought his shop was teacher Jin. Teacher Jin told Junwoo everything. Junwoo then went to Miho's studio and asked Miho why he helped him. Miho said he didn't want Junwoo to hurt Yuna. The next day, Junwoo took off his nice suit and went to his former home dressed in shabby clothes. Yuna was very unhappy to see her ex-husband, but when she saw how down he was, she asked him what was wrong. Junwoo said he would never bother Yuna again, because he had completely lost in front of Miho. Junwoo told Yuna about Miho's help. Yuna realized that she had been living under Miho's protection and had never truly been independent. She then submitted a withdrawal application to the school. She hoped that Miho would no longer appear in front of her. Yuna didn't want to live her life depending on men anymore. Hayami thought Yuna's decision was too crazy. Yuna had been diagnosed with a terminal illness and still continued her studies. How could she just give up now? How could she possibly be worthy of Miho, the famous director? Finally, Yuna started working part-time at Jaeho's stir-fried rice cake shop. That day, Hayami came to the shop to look for Yuna and asked her if Miho had come by recently. Yuna said sadly that Miho must have been too busy to come by. Hayami angrily said that it wasn't because he was too busy. Last time, Jaeho told Miho that you were helping out here. But Miho told Jaeho not to tell him anything about you anymore. Yuna pretended not to care, but she remembered Miho's words from last time. Miho didn't want to give up on this relationship, so he asked Yuna to meet him to talk. He explained that he didn't fall in love with Yuna because of the illusion of first love. It was after meeting Yuna that he was moved by her personality. Seeing that Yuna was in a bad mood, Hayami suggested that they wait until Yuna's grandmother's death anniversary to go back to their hometown together. Hearing about her grandmother, Yuna's mood instantly changed and she began to plan her trip back home. Miho was busy rehearsing for the play. In order to make his script more perfect, he was extremely strict with the actors. At that moment, Taejun brought some snacks to help them recharge. The people around him couldn't help but ask Miho why he hadn't treated them to stir-fried rice cakes recently. Miho casually replies that he hasn't been feeling hungry lately. The scene changes, and the two accidentally meet at a bookstore. Yuna sees Miho getting closer to her. She wants to say hello, but Miho ignores her. That night, Yuna takes a notebook out of her bag. She takes out a well-preserved newspaper clipping. The newspaper is a report about Miho. Yuna looked at Miho's photo in the newspaper and angrily closed it. The next day, Yuna arrived at the bus stop to go back to her hometown with her best friend. Looking at the couples playing around, she couldn't help but think of the sweet memories of listening to songs with Miho. Suddenly, a car stopped in front of her. When the window opened, she was surprised to see Miho inside. Miho invited Yuna to get in and offered her a ride. Yuna refused, saying she could take a taxi. Miho got out of the car and pretended to ask Yuna where she was going. When he found out that Yuna was going back to her hometown, he put her luggage in the trunk and opened the door for her. Yuna then got into Miho's car with a proud expression. She told Miho to just take her to the bus station. At that moment, Hayami called to say that her mother had to go to the hospital for a checkup and couldn't accompany Yuna back to her hometown. Yuna and Miho returned to her hometown together to pay their respects to her deceased grandmother. Looking at the familiar courtyard, Yuna couldn't help but think of how they used to rehearse dances here 20 years ago. How did the shy and introverted Miho become so sharp-tongued? It was thanks to her encouragement and their time capsule that they wrote together. Yuna suddenly became interested in seeing if the time capsule they buried was still there. However, when she returned to the place where they had buried it, she couldn't remember exactly where they had buried it. Just then, Miho suddenly appeared and reminded her that it was under the big tree. Yuna excitedly picked up a branch from the ground and dug up their memories from 20 years ago. When Yuna saw the bottle, she gently wiped the dirt off it with her hand. She opened Miho's bottle first and discovered that she had always been a part of Miho's plans for the future. Yuna was very moved and opened her own bottle to find that she had written the name of someone she wanted to pay attention to on the paper. She realized that Miho had remembered everything about her, and that she had let Miho down after more than 20 years of his deep affection. Yuna hurriedly got up and caught up with Miho, who was feeling discouraged. It turned out that Miho had come to pay his respects to Yuna's grandmother after completing his military service. At that time, his parents had passed away, and he was about to study abroad in Russia, not knowing if he would ever return. After seeing the time capsule and thinking about Yuna's betrayal, he had wanted to throw everything away, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Miho turned and left. Yuna hurriedly hugged Miho from behind, afraid he would leave, tears of regret welling up in her eyes. Miho, who had been rejected many times before, coldly asked Yuna what she was doing. Yuna replied that she hoped Miho would stay by her side. The two finally resolved their issues and hugged each other tightly. Then they went to Yuna's grandmother's grave and told her the good news. Miho sighed and said that Yuna had finally come to her senses after 3 months. Yuna couldn't help but complain to Miho about how he could have not come to see her for so long. Miho confessed that he had secretly asked Hayami and Jaeho to take good care of Yuna. This reunion had been planned with their help. In the end, Junwoo was teaching at a rural school. Without Yuna, he could only wear tattered clothes. At that moment, Junwoo must have deeply regretted divorcing Yuna.